Hello all my JavaScript friends, this is TheVirtuoid, aka Mike Smith, and this is our racing game. Today we're going to be taking a look at the four objects, that are within the system: the track object, the car object, the game object, and the layout object. Although I just realized I don't think I have a screen for the layout object, but I think we can pretty much figure out what's going on there. The big thing I want to take a look at today is the track object, because that defines the individual pieces of the track, and that is extremely important. With the track layout, the reason that we're going to be spending a lot of time on this particular object is that we are in a three-dimensional space here, and the tracks are going to be bendable, and the tracks are going to have curves, and they got to be able to connect up correctly. So we're going to have a couple of concepts here that we need to understand. And that first concept is that all pieces share two very critical pieces of information, and that's basically a starting position, a starting group of data, and an ending group of data. And within each of this group of data, it's two particular pieces of information. Let's go through this. First of all, we have the starting position. Now, this is the XYZ, the length, depth, and width of a length, the X, Y, and Z basically of a particular track, and that's always anchored upon the middle of the track itself. And this is the starting position of the piece. The starting direction vector basically says, which way is the next piece going to go? I mean, once we start drawing out this particular piece, which way is it going to go? For instance, if we had a starting vector of x of 1, y of 0, and z of 0, then along the x-axis, the track is going to draw a straight track along the x-axis. 0, 1, 0 for x, y, z is going to draw a straight track along the y-axis, and so on and so forth. And this allows us to be able to make adjustments in the track to be able to send it in different ways. So if the track ends up having to have a direction vector that sends it one way, it may end up sending it another way, especially for a curve, because obviously a curve as a direction vector is going to be a complete 90 degree, 45 degree, or whatever turnaround on the curve. Then we have the ending position, which is the final position that the piece is going to start from or end with, and that would basically be determined by the length of the piece, and the ending direction vector. And normally, for example, if you have just a straight piece with no contours or anything like that, your ending direction vector is going to be exactly the same thing as your starting direction vector. But we're going to have contours, we're going to have curves and things like that, so these will be different. But some very important concepts to understand here. Now, the starting position equals, usually the starting position and the starting direction vector is always going to be equal to the ending position and the ending direction vector of the previous piece. The only exception to that, obviously, is the very first piece, because obviously it's the very first piece. So normally what will happen is that any piece that is defined within the track will not have a starting position and not have a specific starting position or a specific direction vector. It will inherit that from the previous piece. Its responsibility is to be able to construct an ending position based upon whether it's a curve or straight, the length of it, and things like that, and an ending direction vector, again, depending upon contours, which we'll get here in just a second, or how the curve is made. So that's going to be a very important concept to understand here, is that there's almost never going to be a starting position or a starting direction vector, with one exception: the very first piece in the puzzle. And we'll get to that here shortly, but the very first piece in the puzzle will always have a starting position and a starting direction vector, because it's got to start from somewhere. So therefore, the first piece will always have it. Otherwise, all the other pieces will derive theirs from the ending position and ending direction vector. Okay. Got to understand that concept, because once we got that done, now we can start building all our different types of tracks. And let's start with a straight. So a straight piece is simply a piece that is, if you can imagine a road on a flat plane, if it wants to turn 90 degrees to the north, the edges of the piece curve that 90 degrees to go to the north. But that's all. A straight piece has no curves like that. That does not mean it doesn't have hills. It can be very hilly, but still be considered a straight piece or a straight road. So let's take a look at some of the attributes. There really is only two attributes of a straight. The first one is the length of the straight. How the straight is drawn out is based upon the length of the straight and the current direction vector, or the starting direction vector, which again is the ending direction vector of the previous piece before. Once you draw that particular length out, you will get an ending position and an ending direction vector. If it had 0 contours whatsoever, we'll get to contours here in just a second, this particular straight piece, the ending direction vector of the straight piece will have the exact same value as the starting direction vector, only the ending position has changed along that particular direction vector. So what are contours? Contours are Bezier curves. Now, if you know what a Bezier curve is, it basically allows you, it's a programmatic way to draw really nice looking curves. So if we wanted to put hills within our particular piece, we can very easily do that by simply saying, I want to be able to draw a Bezier curve in which the edges still remain straight, but the Bezier allows us to put hills, for lack of a better term, within the straight piece itself. Or for instance, if we got a very sharp slope coming down, like we would have at the very beginning of the race, and we want to kind of even that out a little bit, the Bezier curve will allow us to very gently smooth out that angle to make it a more gentle angle. Now, a Bezier curve will, by definition, automatically change that ending direction vector. So, for instance, if we had an incline at 45 degrees, for example, and we applied a Bezier curve to where the end of the straight is at 0 degrees, then the starting direction vector is going to be 45 degrees, while the ending direction vector is going to be 0 degrees. So, if there is no contour, if this contour is null, then the straight piece is going to be a pure straight piece, no hills, no nothing. A contour is where we can draw the hills or increase inclines, decrease inclines, all that kind of fun stuff. And you'll see that once we get into the code and start constructing the piece. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel to view more videos. Click on the like button on this video and visit us at TheVirtuoid.com. Also, support us on Patreon, where you can get access to member-only videos. Links are down below. Again, thank you very much for watching, and keep on coding.